Welcome to the Board of Regents Open Forum on the proposed fiscal year 2014 annual operating budget. We thank you for joining us today. Also, individuals in Crookston, Duluth, Morris, and Rochester will be able to observe the comments made here today via web stream. Before we start, I want to remind the audience about the purpose of today's forum and the procedures we'll follow. First, this is an opportunity for the university community and the public to voice concerns and suggestions about the university's budget. It is not a dialogue, so if you pose specific questions, please do not expect answers or a response today from the board or the president. We will listen carefully to your concerns and suggestions and consider them. If your comments pose a factual question, the president can ask a member of the staff to provide you with information. The board reviewed the president's recommended operating budget for the coming fiscal year at its meeting earlier today and will vote on the proposed recommendations during its meeting on June 14th, 2013. I will call your name when it is your turn to speak. Please come to the podium at the presenter's table and, for the record, provide your name and affiliation, student, faculty, member, staff, etc. The microphones do not need to be adjusted. Each speaker will be allowed up to 3 minutes. You will see a warning light when 1 minute is left and another light when your time is up. If you have handouts, please give them to a board staff member. They will be distributed to Regents after the meeting. I call this public forum of the Board of Regents to order. The first person is Ann Hagen. Please come to the podium.
Chair Cohen, President Kaler, members of the board, my name is Ann Hagen. I'm a staff member in the School of Dentistry, and I'm currently chair of the P&A Consultative Committee and P&A Senate. I would like to speak to you today about staff support and recognition. This year was a banner year for recognizing P&As at the U. For the first time, P&As were eligible to be nominated for the university's most prestigious awards for teaching and education. And we weren't just nominated, we won. Christopher DeVolis, a teaching specialist in computer science and engineering, was one of 7 recipients of the Morris Alumni Association Award for outstanding contributions to undergraduate education. This year also brought other recognition to the P&As, most notably in the form of an article in the Wall Street Journal, which started a cry of too many administrators that was quickly echoed in St. Paul, and I don't have to tell you what happened next. The Wall Street Journal recognition remains troublesome to the P&As. Our job class's title leads outsiders to believe we are all administrators, but we teach, research, engage the world, and yes, administer programs. We are the most vulnerable employees at the university due to our single-year contracts that can be non-renewed for no reason. Every P&A employee I have spoken to this year is overworked and overwrought about the possibility of being non-renewed. The 2014 budget includes a 2.5% pay increase to facilitate faculty and staff excellence. This is good news. But per legislative action, the 2014 budget must also reduce administrative expenses by $15 million. That's not helping our P&A nerves. The P&A Senate is closely following the Office of Human Resources Job Families Project, which will ultimately help us show what P&As do, why we are needed, and eliminate the cries of too many administrators. This project must continue to receive your support and not fall victim to administrative cuts. $15 million is a lot of money. It means significant change is ahead. Such significant change requires care and communication, 2 things which have seemed to be in short supply around the university of late. The P&A Senate remains concerned the Job Families Project will give rise to policy changes that are not carefully considered or appropriately vetted. Work done on the project this year has already sharply exposed the difference in P&A and civil service terms of hire and benefits, which makes progressing through the Job Families difficult. In addition to supporting the Job Families Project, I encourage the board and everyone at the university to consider how we categorize staff and how we can remove the barriers to staff promotion. A great first step would be the elimination of 1-year contracts for the P&A. Why do the civil service and labor represented staff get offered jobs and P&As get offered 1 year and then maybe another year? And then let's get all the staff on the same page so that we can move forward faster. The P&A Senate is proud to be a critical part of the university and its mission. We join you in the pursuit of excellence and look forward to moving these conversations and priorities forward in 2014. Thank you.
Thank you. Ryan Straight.
That's pretty exciting. Cool. So I'm Ryan Straight, and I'm an undergraduate neuroscience student. So I guess I'll start with the mission of the university, which is research and discovery, teaching and learning, and outreach and public service. So big spenders, according to Catherine Brown, the Vice President for Human Resources, 62% of the $3.1 billion spent in 2012 went to people. So that was salary, wages, and fringe benefits. So kind of some big areas on that. In athletics, Tubby Smith received $730,000 in pay, with $1.1 million in other pay, and Coach Gill had $650,000 with $600,000 in other pay. Actually, from the top down, it takes 11 head coaching positions to drop below $100,000 a year, which falls to Kelly Thomas, who coaches swimming, for just $94,000 a year. So that's $5.1 million for just the top 11 coaches we employed last year, not taking into account Tubby's $3.2 million golden parachute. In terms of directors, the top 18 are all here in the Twin Cities. 7 of them are university-wide directors, where the remaining 11 are only campus or college level. And every single one makes over $200,000 a year, totaling up to $4.4 million spent on college level and university-wide directorship. Then there's another 7 Twin Cities vice presidents on top of that, and 2 senior vice presidents above them. There's also an internal budget model from 2006 put together by Richard Futzenreiter, and recommends an allocation of $81 million to administration and only $14 million to research. This was 7 years ago, and as the Wall Street Journal that we've all heard about has shown, growth in administrative spending has outpaced every single other sector within the university. Moving on to the tuition freeze that Kaler's been promoting after the largest single increase in tuition in a decade came from the state donation of $42.6 million for tuition relief that replaces the 3% increase that would have occurred otherwise. However, this only froze in-state undergraduate tuition, with increases in out-of-state, increases in room and board, and a shift of the burden to graduate students, of which law students will see an increase of 9% to $38,000 a year. The point of this is that despite our mission to be one of the top 3 research universities in the world, and what's practically a monopoly on education in Minnesota, the U is happily plodding towards an unsustainable level of expense that relies on students and the state to support the bill without truly driving to provide quality, low-cost education. Unfortunately, we may not be the best research university in the world, but considering the money flow, we're arguably one of the best administrated. And that's it. Thank you.
Sherine Horza.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Sherine Horza. I have worked at the Humphrey School of Public Affairs for 9 years, and I'm the president of AFSCME 3800. Each year, clerical workers testify regarding the U's budget priorities. Each year, we play a game where we testify and you pretend to listen. Or at least that's how it appears, because year after year, we have told you of administrative bloat and excessive administrative salaries that are being paid for with skyrocketing tuition, the elimination of frontline jobs, and the rolling back of clerical worker wages in real terms. Year after year, we have called for transparency in financial decision-making. We have called for equity in staffing cuts. We have denounced the policies and practices of administrative enrichment that are unacceptable for a world-class public institution. We've also gone on strike twice. We have shouted from the mountaintops, or at least the steps of Morrill Hall. Yet it's as if none of this took place, at least if you consider your responses to the Wall Street Journal article. We have been the canary in the coal mines. Administrative bloat at the U has made front-page headlines and led to scrutiny from the governor and legislature. Yet your response has once again been to deny, to deflect, and to treat those raising criticism, such as Governor Carlson, the way you've treated us, with disregard and disrespect. You seem to view us as a thorn in the side of the individuals who use this land-grant institution as a vehicle for personal enrichment at taxpayer expense. The legislature took a stand and is demanding accountability. This year's budget process reflects that. However, change needs to happen and happen now. We applaud the freeze in tuition, but it is at least 10 years too late for the tens of thousands of alums who face debt loads that will cripple their finances for decades. We applaud the commitment to cut $15 million in administration, but this as well comes at least 5 years too late after a veritable administrative boomtown mentality that has seen an increase of 85 high-paid senior administrative positions, all while 184 clerical jobs were eliminated. The $15 million in administrative cuts need to be made at the top. Clerical, technical, healthcare, maintenance, and food service workers have paid the price for a system that has created wealth for a few and poverty for thousands of workers who struggle to get by. So I challenge you today to actually listen and hear what our members have to say regarding the job losses, the poverty wages, the lost educational opportunities, the inequity of leave policies, the devastating impact of health insurance cost increases. Hear what we say as well about the work we do every day to further the mission of this university in spite of all of this. I also challenge you to take action on what you hear. Create a truly world-class university that pays all workers a livable wage, not a poverty wage for many and luxury wages for a few. A university that recognizes and respects the work that is done and the people that do it. A university that puts students and the land-grant mission first. A university that can't be called the university of haves and have-nots. It's long past time to chop from the top.
Jean Quam.
Chair Cohen, President Kaler, members of the Board of Regents. I want to thank you for allowing me to speak as the current chair of the Twin Cities Dean's Council, as Dean of the College of Education and Human Development for the past 5 years, and as a parent of a U of M freshman at Duluth. I would like to offer some general comments as to why it is especially important to our students and their families that we stop the increases in costs to educate our students. While I cannot speak for all of the deans and colleges at the U, I can use our own college as an example. We currently have approximately 2,500 undergraduates in our college. Our students will be tomorrow's elementary school teachers, youth workers, coaches, sports trainers, social workers, and school counselors. They will work with you in homeless shelters, mental health clinics, child care centers, nursing homes, national parks, and in the military. The average undergraduate student will leave our university with about $30,000 in debt. Most of our college graduates will barely earn that much in their first positions after graduation. One of our undergraduates was recently hired in the Minneapolis school system for $38,000 a year. As the most diverse college at the university, many of our undergraduate students are first-generation students whose access to college must remain affordable if they are going to be able to attend our university. The knowledge of a stable tuition rate allows families to plan for what is needed as they budget for the future. Equally as important, our college is well positioned to help the university meet the benchmarks that are a key element of this budget. As a leader of the state's flagship research university, President Kaler is holding the university, each of our colleges, and each of our deans accountable to performance metrics in key areas such as reducing administrative costs, which we have done as our state support has dramatically decreased, increase our retention and graduation rates, which are continuing to improve each year, increasing STEM degrees at the undergraduate level, including producing STEM teachers at the K-12 level, and increasing movement of faculty inventions to commercialization. In our college, for example, this year we created a new app to learn sign language, an assessment tool for infant and toddler development, and an app to promote discussion inside and outside of the classroom. These performance metrics are helpful in pushing us as a university to make sure we continue to innovate in teaching, research, and outreach, and to make sure that the wonderful students attending this great university are getting what they need out of their education. I would like to reiterate that this budget, and particularly the tuition freeze, will continue to keep the university open to all qualified students who want to attend and will support an increasingly diverse student body who will take on the challenges of new discoveries and who will keep this university at the forefront of public research universities in the nation. Thank you.
Melanie Steinman.
My name is Melanie Steinman. I'm the Chief Steward of AFSCME Local 3800. Thank you for your time. On May 20th, we saw an outrageous new low on the part of the university. The Office of Information Technology swung an axe that cut off the livelihood of 25 university employees, 25 dedicated long-term employees. Some with over 30 years of service to the university were laid off. 14 of them were in the clerical and technical workers unions. After these layoffs happened, union leadership was explicitly told by OIT and HR that you all, the Board of Regents, put your stamp of approval on this mass layoff. But did the Board of Regents put your stamp of approval on the appalling manner in which these layoffs were carried out? Have dignity and respect also been stripped from the budget? These employees, barely receiving the basic courtesy of time to collect more than a box full of their personal belongings, were given their layoff notices and told to leave on the spot. To get the rest of their belongings, they needed to schedule an after-hours appointment. These employees were not thanked for their years of service. Instead, they were escorted out of their building as plain-clothed police observed. When some of their remaining coworkers attempted to say goodbye or get a hint of what was going on, they were hushed. One laid-off employee had his supervisor hold up his hand to block his coworker from simply communicating with him. There's a tiny line in their layoff notices that reads, "This is not a reflection of your quality of work." Then why were these OIT employees shamed and treated as though they were criminals in the course of these layoffs? The U proclaims unparalleled employment experience. Only at the university do you get dedication to employees' wellness with programs to promote a healthy workplace. How do these actions provide an unparalleled employment experience and support wellness? OIT was, of course, on the radar earlier this spring. OIT was held up to the legislature as an example of reorganization within the U's Spans and Layers report. Then, on the last day of the legislative session, with the U's funding secure, OIT let these 25 workers go, 14 of them in AFSCME. As far as we've heard, nobody's supervisor was laid off. How does that affect OIT's exemplary reorganization, their spans and layers? How has the legislature been deceived as the U chooses to shame and kick out some of its workers? Is this culture of disdain for some of the University of Minnesota employees something that you all have put your stamp of approval on? Thank you.
Aaron Beak.
Hi, I'm Aaron Beak, the president of the Council of Graduate Students. And here I stand as the voice for over 13,000 graduate students throughout the university system. Without our work as fellows, students, and assistants, the university would not function. We're in lecture halls delivering primary instruction to undergraduates at all levels. We are in laboratories performing experiments behind the next big Minnesota discovery. And we are suffering from serious pressures on our finances thanks to ever-increasing costs and stagnant university support. We are asking the Board of Regents to recognize the need for a stronger financial commitment to graduate education on top of organizational changes. And we are asking for a decisive role in creating a better future for graduate education. The pressures facing students are a perfect storm of rising costs, flat wages, and declining funding for professional development, research, and travel. These forces aren't specific to any particular college or department. According to a COG survey, fees are a concern for over half the students across all disciplines. The fees that all Twin Cities students pay have risen 60% in the last decade, in part to pay for capital projects that are developed with minimal graduate student input. Many collegiate fees have more than doubled. International fees have tripled. Stipends, however, have barely kept pace with inflation, even though 40% of graduate students report working beyond their appointments requirements. As a result, some graduate assistants are paying 10% of their stipend right back to the university in fees. COGS has seen the effect of declining travel funding firsthand. While we worked with the graduate school to offer $40,000 in travel grants annually, the amount of requests have skyrocketed, $250,000 in just the last semester. The consequence is a less productive academic institution. Students that pay over $600 in fees per semester cannot afford to attend pivotal competitive conferences. 40% of students with graduate assistantships report taking on additional employment. These trends translate into lower quality undergraduate instruction, delayed research, and longer time to degree. These issues are changing the perception of the university. Today, less than 2/3 of graduate students would recommend their university program to their peers. If we want to recruit top-rate students, we must do better. The Graduate Student 2.0 initiative is an encouraging sign, but this initiative cannot be effective without a strong financial investment in graduate students and a meaningful role for us in the process. We're realistic about the budgetary climate, and we applaud the administration's pledge to hold down undergraduate costs. However, given the lack of a similar promise to graduate students, we fear the budget will balance on our back and the Graduate Student 2.0 effort will not get off the ground. We're asking you to take responsibility for providing all departments with resources to recruit and prepare the best students. Please commit to hold down graduate students' costs, increasing fellowship funding, increase assistance stipends, and expand funding for travel. Finally, please ensure that graduate students have a visible and effective voice in changing higher education. Without support for graduate students, a top-tier university cannot function. We're proud but concerned members of the university community. We look forward to working with the board and the administration to keep our university strong. Thank you.
Amy Silvias.
My name is Amy Silvias. I'm a 13-year university employee and the secretary for AFSCME Local 3800. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. I want to read what is, sadly, a typical story from one of our members in Greater Minnesota. Dear Board of Regents, I want you to understand that the university's budget decisions over recent years have caused employees considerable financial stress. I've been a university employee for nearly 20 years. Recent wage increases haven't covered increased health insurance premiums and also don't cover cost increases for groceries, utilities, and gas needed to get to work. I work 3 other jobs to get some additional income. My budget is not large enough to cover vehicle and home repairs. I drive a vehicle that's nearly 20 years old and has over 200,000 miles. I bartered hours of my work to buy it from a friend 6 years ago, and I have no savings for a replacement vehicle. I commute because the real estate prices are lower where I live than in the city where I work. I use my university vacation time to work at other things and don't actually go on vacations. I even stopped making day trips to state parks. I've never traveled in an airplane or attended a major league game. I don't see movies in theaters and don't have cable television. I bring food from home. I have a huge vegetable garden and spend time preserving produce for winter consumption. Most groceries I buy are from a Benton Dent store, with many of them extra inexpensive because they've passed their expiration date. My home's thermostat is set at 55 degrees in winter and I wear layers of clothing. I pay for a haircut less than once a year. Friends have given me the majority of the clothes and shoes I wear. I decided not to have children because I struggled so much to pay my own living expenses. The thought of paying a big increase in premiums plus higher copays and a new deductible in 2014, as recently proposed by university administration, really scares me. When the copay was $11, I had appointments with a counselor. I quit seeing my counselor so my spouse could start seeing one. My spouse quit when the copay went to $15. I used to have a couple prescriptions. Since it was not a life-threatening condition, I stopped refilling these. I schedule annual dental exams, eye exams, and physicals because those appointments are covered without copays. I go without new eyeglasses as long as possible, even if my prescription has changed. Please do not increase the cost of my medical care. Please continue the medical premium relief program that helps lower-income employees like me. If you do not care that clerical employees like me need wage increases that keep up with inflation, then here are some reasons why we deserve wage increases that pay the bills. My supervisor has nominated me for an Outstanding Staff Award, saying that I am an exemplary employee and that I am consistently hardworking, versatile, knowledgeable, cooperative, kind, respectful, and willing to help others achieve their goals. My coworkers are also dedicated and talented employees. A group of coworkers nominated me for a University Service Award. They mentioned my commitment to the university, my participation on committees, and my desire to continually learn. They said that I am well respected and sought out for my knowledge and my thoughtful, reasoned opinions, and know that I work to increase camaraderie and boost morale. Please pardon me for asking me to remain anonymous. It is really embarrassing to live this way, and I want to remain a respected member of the university community. Sincerely, Anonymous.
Sally Kolstad.
Chair Cohen, Regents, President Kaler. I'm Sally Gregory Kolstad. I am professor and director of the History of Science and Technology program here, and I'm also chair of the Faculty and Senate Consultative Committees. Thank you for allowing me to present. Like others here, I welcome the increased support from the legislature this year that acknowledges ongoing efforts to meet the standards and expectations at this university. Let me comment on just two aspects of the budget, the tuition freeze and the MnDrive initiative. First, the Faculty Consultative Committee this year discussed the issue of tuition revenue with the administration. The decision to cap in-state undergraduate tuition for the next 2 years maintains our land-grant commitment to Minnesotans. The modest increase for those out-of-state people should not significantly inhibit our capacity to attract outstanding students from elsewhere. It is important that we maintain a diverse and broad-based community of students. I also want to note the commitment, and I quote, to keep graduate and professional tuition as low as possible and aligned with market conditions and peer institutions. Unfortunately, the pressure on funding graduate education is becoming very acute, and it will be essential not to let any future unbridled growth in graduate tuition undercut the capacity for supporting teaching and research assistants at this university. Second, the University of Minnesota has a historically strong record of research funding and achievement. In order to maintain its reputation and strengthen key areas where we can make significant advances, we must build on the talents that we have on campus while expanding our physical infrastructure and hiring outstanding additional talent where it is needed. New state funding has enabled us to have budgets next year that target very specific areas where there's likelihood of significant breakthrough, as you well know. Thus, the 4 MnDrive initiatives represent the kind of cross-collegiate capacity for which our university is known. They are in areas, namely food safety, defense and production, neuromodulation, robotics, and water quality, where researchers will be able to take advantage of strengths in the colleges that are involved with science, technology, and health. But I think it's also important to engage faculty, and indeed that significant component of all research on campus, namely the graduate students, in the social sciences and humanities, from economics to ethics, in order to enhance and provide perspective on these initiatives. I am sure you all recognize that such interdisciplinary breadth is indeed the value added by research done at a research university. Faculty members have been consulted in both tuition and research initiatives as they've moved forward, and we're ready to participate in their implementation. Thank you.
Holly Peterson.
Good afternoon. My name is Polly Peterson, and I'm a clerical worker in the Office of Human Resources. I'm proud of the work that I do in the Human Resources Contact Center, making sure that employees get paid correctly and helping Minnesotans find careers at the University of Minnesota. I give each person the time they need to understand what is necessary to be successful at applying for jobs at the university. AFSCME Local 3800 surveyed our members to find out the critical functions they provide for the University of Minnesota, and in 3 minutes I can share only a very small sample of 3 of these inspiring answers that we got. One person said, I help a faculty member by doing an administrative function for them that allows them to keep doing their important teaching and research without getting bogged down with paperwork and policy and procedural know-how that is needed to carry out these administrative functions properly. It is a win-win-win for the faculty member, the university, and the department. Another member said, my work supports a program whose mission is to help kids be successful at getting into and completing some form of post-secondary education. We are directly involved in working to provide a strong, diverse community of learners and teachers at the University of Minnesota and elsewhere. By managing the administrative details of my program and providing administrative support to my team members, I am helping the University of Minnesota be a strong leader in closing the achievement gap in Minnesota. And finally, a third member said, the national study I am a part of is the first of its kind in this country and second in the world to study heart disease in ethnic cultures. I am bilingual and multicultural. I have been the data manager for 13 years and event coordinator for 11 years, and I am responsible for protecting and ensuring the privacy of our 1,065 participants, all of whom are residents of Minnesota. The Minnesota cohort is one of 6 throughout the United States. This study has already made a great impact on the way the medical field looks at heart disease in ethnic populations and raised awareness for the majority population in the state of Minnesota. It raised the profile of the University of Minnesota nationally and internationally. These are only 3 of the stories our staff members who work to support the Gland Grant mission of the University of Minnesota in teaching, research, and community engagement. We hold up the massive work that is the University of Minnesota, and our numbers have been falling while our workloads have doubled in many cases. Please do what is right and give clerical workers and other staff the respect and wages that they deserve. Thank you.
Russell Lupker.
Chair Cohn, Regents, President Kaler. I'm Russell Lupker. I'm Mayo Professor of Public Health and Professor of Medicine and Cardiology. I'm also Chair of the Senate Finance and Planning Committee. I want to congratulate the administration for the tuition freeze and the STEM research money that they so successfully negotiated in St. Paul. I actually read the whole budget with the eye of a long-term member of Finance and Planning, and I have 2 items for your consideration. The first is the administrative burden, or as some newspapers refer to it, the bloat. We're all aware of the Department of Education study. We know there were errors in counting methods, but it gave us unwanted national exposure. Further news about retirement payments led the legislature to ask for a $10 million reduction in administrative costs. It appears that will be easily met, but I encourage you first to think about the people that are being cut. Are they redundant administrators or people who deliver direct services to students and research programs? And to follow the process closely to ensure it continues and mission creep, that is, adding new administrators, doesn't occur. My second point is tuition for professional students. The medical school tuition is in the top 5 of publics in the nation. Our medical students have an average debt of $175,000 when they leave school, and the debt is growing. The dental school has a tuition rate for residents of $39,000 and a tuition for non-residents of $71,000 a year. It is not surprising that these students don't choose to follow practice in specialties like family medicine or psychiatry or geriatrics, specialties we are going to need badly, but instead tend to work in affluent suburbs in other specialties, and they tend not to work in outstate Minnesota, where the need is greatest. Being first in tuition and student debt is not an aspirational goal. I encourage you to work on this issue because it's an important one for the health of our state in the future. Thank you very much.
Sandy Sherman.
Good afternoon. My name is Sandy Sherman, and I am AFSCME Local 3800's representative to the University Benefits Advisory Committee. I speak in opposition to the health insurance proposals that will significantly raise out-of-pocket costs to employees. The Affordable Care Act is being used to justify this move, despite the fact that the so-called Cadillac tax provision does not go into effect until 2018, and the value of our plans is well below the threshold. Though it is clear that the U will face the potential of additional taxes, it is not true that employees must bear the brunt of the financial burden in order to comply with the new law. The proposal increases office co-pays from $15 to $25 for primary care and $40 for specialists. This hurts employees who have chronic conditions and need to see healthcare professionals regularly. I ask the Board of Regents to try hard to put yourselves into the shoes of university workers who live on very tight budgets and whose wages have been stagnant for years. Take the $200 new deductible For some university workers, $200 is lunch money and coffee money for 2 weeks. For university staff, many of us, it is the difference between buying groceries or not. For many, this will mean that they will choose not to have their medical care, and this will certainly result in higher costly care in the future. The university plan to avoid new taxes places all the burden on employees. Why do we have to soak up all the damage? Are there potential scenarios in which the U pays all or part of these costs? One option would be for the university to return to the U plan the $6 million savings we had in 2005 that went back to the general fund. This would more than cover the $4 million hit. And I might add that as long as the U plan has existed, costs have come in under those projected, so we have no idea if this $4 million is a real number. Under ACA, premiums have to be kept to a certain threshold to avoid the employer Cadillac tax. The university could increase its share of the premiums and lower premium costs for workers, as one example. Premiums in the health exchange will be based on family income, family size, and poverty level. Could the U devise a similar plan where people who make more pay more, people who make less pay less? Is it true that the U's health insurance plan is better than what, it is true that the U's health insurance plan is better than what many people have. But U employees paying more will not mean that others pay less. It only results in a race to the bottom. We fight not only to defend our health insurance, but also for quality health, affordable health care for all. The U should lead the way in providing world-class benefits that set a high standard for everyone in the state. We call upon the administration to stop your plan to shift costs onto employees and instead look for other cost savings in the budget in order to provide the kind of health benefits that your employees deserve. Thank you.
Gerald Vtec.
Chair Cohen, President Kaler, members of the Board of Regents, I'm here to voice my support for this budget, for the investment it's making in critically important research here at this institution. My name is Jerry Vtec. I'm the Chair of Neurology at the University of Minnesota. Many of the people in my department, as well as other faculty that we worked with in other departments, will benefit from the Minnesota Drive funds for neuromodulation. But I would make a point in saying that it's not about me and my colleagues. This is about people. It's about people with devastating neurologic disorders. 1 in 6 of us will experience one of these disorders in our lifetime. MinDrive is about investing in those people. When I started in medicine, I started to help people. I mean, it sounds a little corny when we say that, but that's what we do. It's what we want to do. What's been especially rewarding for me is to be in an operating room, turn on our neuromodulation device, and watch somebody's tumor melt away in front of your eyes. Now, that's a life-changing experience for those patients, but it's as life-changing for us as it is for them to be able to do that. To watch patients after surgery walk who couldn't walk before. To watch a kid who was in a wheelchair for 3 years. These are all clear examples. That couldn't walk, in wheelchair bound 3 years, gets up, walks, and in a year or so is able to run in a playground with their friends. This is truly remarkable work that's being done in neuromodulation. It has absolutely changed the way we view and treat neurologic disorders. Here at the university, we are well poised to be a leader in neuromodulation. In fact, we should be the world leader in neuromodulation. We have 3 companies that are involved in neuromodulation in the U.S. All 3 of those are home-based in the state of Minnesota. We've done some significant work in looking at what's going wrong. Where is it going wrong? How and where is the brain functioning abnormally in disease? We've made significant progress in that. And by understanding that, we're able to use neuromodulation to know where to target and how to improve patients' lives. We've gone from using this approach for one disorder to over a dozen, and it's growing exponentially. New targets, technology, new devices, new applications, they grow every day. All this work, the thing that actually excites me most about this work is what I do in the lab today, I can translate to clinical treatment tomorrow. That can be life-changing for somebody. This budget, bottom line, this budget supports people who do this life-changing research. It develops new clinical applications. And the bottom line is, ultimately, it's about affecting the people's lives with these disorders and the patients' families who also suffer with these devastating disorders. So for me, what I see is the MinDrive and the President's budget. It's about investing in people. I'm really honored and very, very excited to be a part of this. Thank you.
Wendy Plager.
Hello, my name is Wendy. I enjoy my job serving students in the Health Career Center. I'm also a student, currently using the Regents Scholarship to help fund a master's degree in educational administration so that I can develop effective programs for our students. However, I'm greatly concerned by how the proposed changes in health benefits will affect my husband and me. This will affect our lives directly, and we may not be able to move forward in our schooling. My husband, Philip, who's also a student at the U of M, is type 1 diabetic, so the increases in premiums and copays would affect us dramatically. Our lives are affected every day by diabetes. If Philip is able to afford the daily prescriptions he needs, he can prevent any serious problems from developing, which saves thousands of our healthcare dollars and allows us to maintain our simple and healthy quality of life. My income is already stretched thin by paying for both of our tuition bills, rent, and insurance. This leaves no buffer for savings or emergencies. Doubling our cost of healthcare would significantly impact our lives. My budget cannot absorb this increase. We have no children yet and probably will not have any for a while because we cannot afford it. Having a wage-based sliding scale for healthcare premium payments would greatly help our family and save us from moving backwards. Philip is working hard towards becoming a doctor who helps treat other diabetics, and I would like to become a professor or a dean at a university. We need our university to respect our family now so that we'll be able to progress by getting the health care and education that we need to achieve our goals for the future. Please do not increase the amount that we pay for our health care so that we can keep developing through school and work to lead future generations of University of Minnesota students. Thank you.
Peter Swanson.
Chair Cohen, President Kaler, members of the Board of Regents, I'm Peter Swanson, and I represent students Alex Miller and Drew Christensen. So why am I here again? Each of the last 2 years, I requested an appeal process for student fees. Now, the administration says they have one, but it's not a true appeal process. For example, my client submitted 3 appeals with a total of 9 claims. Some claims were dismissed with a single sentence. In my letter and attachments you have in front of you, read for yourself and ask whether the claims were adequately addressed. The Twin Cities Office of Student Affairs have all of the documents. In addition, members of the Fees Committee themselves serve on the Appeal Committee, so they're grading their own work. There's no independent review. Yours is the first fresh set of eyes to see these claims. By comparison, Wisconsin-Madison has a disinterested panel made up of third-year law students hearing student fee appeals. That way, it doesn't need to go to the Regents. Some of the claims include like the waiting period for groups to get fees. Twin Cities, Duluth, and Morris campuses have different waiting periods to even apply for student fees. Twin Cities is 1 year, Duluth is 2 years, and Morris is 3 years. Now, this only makes sense if time goes slower as you go north and west. But this is a way of keeping out new viewpoints. Another way to keep out new viewpoints is to grant some student groups permanent office space in Kaufman Union. Granting student office space for decades, permanent, makes no sense at a 4-year college and excludes newer immigrant groups like Somali and Hmong student associations and other groups that may immigrate in the future. Kaufman claims that the old groups are grandfathered, quote unquote, into their space. Now, grandfather clause is a term from the Jim Crow era used to defend discrimination. You can look it up. The student fees process gives preferential treatment to the Minnesota Daily that competing newspapers don't get. Now, is it because this is the official newspaper of the university? No. The Daily won a lawsuit in the 1980s that established that it's independent, just like any other student group. Now, speaking of the Minnesota Daily, there's a farewell article from Mark Rotenberg saying that the grievance process helps cut down on litigation. Well, student fees needs its own grievance process. The article also says that the General Counsel always takes phone calls from Regents. So after reading through my materials, I'm asking that you call whoever the new General Counsel is and ask about each of the 9 claims individually. Maybe you can get more than a 1-sentence answer. After asking about each one of the 9 claims one by one, finally, you should ask, why can't we have an independent student judiciary to hear the appeals like they have at the University of Wisconsin-Madison? Thank you very much.
Taylor Williams.
Thank you, Chair Cohen, President Kaler, and members of the board. My name is Taylor Williams, and I'm the president of the Minnesota Student Association, here to speak on behalf of University of Minnesota undergraduate students. I would like to begin by voicing our support and gratitude for the in-state tuition freeze included in the budget. It was made possible from the efforts of many who have a vested interest in the university and the future of our state. I'm very proud to say that students were a major part of this effort, making their voice heard. Late in the fall, students across the university enthusiastically endorsed the biennial budget request that the university brought to the legislature, which called for a modest, reasonable, and long overdue additional investment to provide for an in-state undergraduate tuition freeze and additional investments in research. The amount of student support for the university's request at the legislature reflects excitement about a renewed focus on student affordability. This focus sends a message across Minnesota and the nation that the University of Minnesota is committed to lowering costs and holding them steady for students. This is exciting for students and also for former students. Having graduated 2 weeks ago, I can tell you that if you continue to reduce costs, I might consider even coming back. This year, student advocacy efforts from all 5 university campuses were facilitated through the Minnesota Student Legislative Coalition, a part of MSA. Highlights of student advocacy supporting higher education funding this session include the largest support to UDA in recent years, with nearly 300 students from all campuses rallying at the Capitol and meeting with over 50 legislators. Thank you, Regents and President Kaler, for attending. Testimony from student leaders at numerous legislative hearings, over dozens, in support of the university budget requests and other higher education appropriations. A grassroots advocacy program that helps students contact and meet with our legislators, and finally, the first ever MSA essay contest that allowed students to tell their story about why they support the university tuition freeze and what the University of Minnesota means for their lives. The contest netted nearly 50 essays. Most were shared with state legislators to help express the value of the university to this state. I would like to recognize Jackson Berry for the first place winner, as the first place winner of our contest, and thank all those who participated for their moving accounts. As our efforts indicate, student support for the proposed fiscal year 14 budget because of the investment in student supported because of the investment of affordability for Minnesota undergraduates and the absence of major fee increases for all students. This budget will make a difference in students' lives. The approximately $1,000 this will save current or incoming students over 2 years will relieve the financial burden placed on students and their families. It could mean less debt, or perhaps even allow students to work fewer hours as at a part-time or full-time job to focus more on academics and co-curriculars. That being said, we remain concerned about the long-term trend of tuition and fee increases. This budget makes some moves in the right direction, but we must remember that it only makes a small impact in the context of a decade-plus long trend of cost increases that have fallen squarely on students. Last year, I stood right here before you, asking you to hold the line. Together, we did that, and I thank you for it. But we must also focus on reducing costs and reducing tuition. The high cost of higher education is a threat to students, their families, the state of Minnesota, and higher education as a whole. We must, as a world-class university, focus on reducing the cost to attend this university because the onus is on us as one of the greatest universities in the nation. Therefore, I encourage the Board of Regents to prioritize the following in future budgets. Hold the line on tuition and fee increases for all students while working to reduce costs. Direct additional university resources to aid lower and middle-class students so higher education is possible. There's a growing concern that the middle class is being squeezed out of this university. Low-income students like myself are supported by scholarships and federal grants, where high-income students can go to school with their parents' income, but middle-income students are often left out in the cold. And finally, reduce overhead administrative costs to free up dollars for mission activities like research and restore the university's public image. Thank you.
Trevor Ames. Trevor Ames. Kyle Edward. Oh, Trevor. Sorry.
I'm Trevor Ames, Dean of the College of Veterinary Medicine. Chair Cohen, members of the Board of Regents, President Kaler. Thank you for this opportunity to discuss the university's budget process this year, and specifically how it has affected the College of Veterinary Medicine. Like other units at the University of Minnesota, the college was asked to do a 0.8% administrative reallocation, which was accomplished through continued implementation of processes and actions started during the Blue Ribbon planning process. These processes included centralization of collegiate resources for human resources, finance, grants administration, and facility support. Additional reductions in costs were achieved through reductions in administrative positions, salary augmentations for administrative activities, and the reduction of non-personnel expenses. Based on our budget discussions, the College of Veterinary Medicine will be investing in facility improvements and filling tenure-track research faculty positions. Some of the positions we will be filling were approved in last year's budget processes and are in the final stages of negotiation. The funding for these positions is from our budget requests in the fiscal year 13 and 14 budgets, and also from the college's revenues, which include all funding sources. In the case of facilities, the funding is from the same budget requests, as well as gifts and donations, and from collegiate reserves. The facility improvements are very important to our college and its collegiate accreditation. We will be having a review and site visit next spring that's part of a 7-year review cycle. To tell you about some of the facility improvements, in the teaching area, we have teaching facility renovations that include an active learning classroom, which is a remodel of an existing 3,800 square foot laboratory in the Animal Science Veterinary Medicine building on the St. Paul campus. And this will be remodeled into an active learning classroom for about 105 students with team sizes of about 3 to 6 students per group. This facility will include technology for shared learning experiences with displays and inputs and outputs for small group learning. This facility will complement the new teaching and learning experiences that have been incorporated into our revised veterinary curriculum, as well as provide space for continuing education programs. Another facility that will be remodeled is the Surgical and Clinical Skills Laboratory, with renovation of a 1,900 square foot teaching space in the Veterinary Medical Center. This facility is important to the development of proficiency in surgical procedures and clinical skills, again, for up to 105 students or adult learners. This renovation will enhance the student learning experience through more flexible use of space and improvements in technology and equipment. The space will also be used to expand procedure-based continuing education programs like veterinary dentistry labs. Another teaching and service facility renovation will be the replacement of a 6,500 square foot deteriorated and non-ADA compliant external bird housing and display facility and rehabilitation flight pens for the Raptor Center's educational and clinical programs. These facilities are needed for teaching our veterinary students as well as intern and resident training. The facility is also used extensively for K-12 students and also for public visiting the Raptor Center. Research facilities will also be renovated with the remodeling of several existing labs in the Animal Science Veterinary Medicine building for research in animal health infectious diseases. Upgrades are required to accommodate additional faculty hires, and this will also help us meet the needs of the swine influenza research program, which is part of the NIH's Minnesota Center for Excellence in Influenza Research and Surveillance. The college is planning 9 faculty hires in fiscal year 14, all having a research focus in one of our focus areas of research. Positions include comparative oncology, cardiovascular research, invasive species, avian infectious diseases, and I might add that this position will have some extension funding and will be based part-time at the Minnesota Center, the Minnesota Central Research and Outreach Center, swine infectious diseases, swine production, global animal health and food safety, ecosystem health, and bioinformatics. Our current and new faculty are also excited about the opportunities available through MinDrive.
The time is up. Thank you.
Okay. I would just make one additional comment that while we weren't able to be impacted by the tuition freeze on resident undergraduate students, the college is very worried about the debt load of our students, with the graduating debt load of about $153,000. This level of debt is clearly affecting the career decisions for our graduates. To address this issue, the college proposed a plan that was approved by the compact process to reduce the 4-year graduation cost of our students through lower summer tuition rates for the clinical training portion of the curriculum. Thank you.
Kyle Edwards.
Hello, my name is Kyle Edwards. I'm a clerical worker in the political science department. I've worked here for 2 years. I've lived in Minnesota all my life, moving to Minneapolis 6.5 years ago to start school in the College of Liberal Arts at the University of Minnesota. I'm here to talk about my experience at the U of M in the Regents Scholarship. I went to a public university in my home state, studied the liberal arts, graduated in 4 years, and worked between 20 and 40 hours a week the whole time in retail, unpaid internships, and as a student worker in the social science advising community in Heller Hall. I am now $35,000 in debt with interest piling up. While the $320 a month I pay in student loans may not sound like much to a regent or someone who makes more than $600,000 a year, it causes me to live paycheck to paycheck. I'm unable to put any money in a savings account. I can't afford car payments. I recently canceled my membership at the recreation center and my bus pass in order to afford a raise in my rent. I consider myself lucky that shopping at a thrift shop is stylish nowadays. I work and studied at an institution whose mission statement says in part that all people are enriched by understanding. The university is dedicated to the advancement of learning and the search for truth, to the sharing of this knowledge through education. Even so, I am unable to continue my education at my alma mater because of the cuts to the Regents Scholarship. Tuition has gone up so much that now the university ostensibly can't afford to educate its own workers. The cut to the Regents Scholarship limits my ability to advance my career. Even though I studied in the political science department for 4 years and have worked here for another 2 and have an intimate knowledge of the program, professors, and courses, I am unqualified to advise undergraduate students about the major because I cannot afford a master's degree. The $1,500 it cost me to take 5 credits in the Master of Liberal Arts program last summer is unsustainable for a low-wage worker and unsustainable for my personal budget. I had to borrow money from my mother. In contrast, a very highly thought of and celebrated clerical worker in my department left her job here last year for a clerical position at George Washington University, in no small part because she could complete an entire master's degree in political science for less money than it took me to complete 2 classes here at the U of M. I'm very glad that the Board of Regents has listened to AFSCME workers, civil service workers, and others when they partially restored the Regents Scholarship for a first degree. AFSCME workers understand that education is good for the community and for its own sake. We understand that all workers should have access to all levels of education, regardless of their income. The Regents Scholarship must be fully restored for all workers, for the first degree, a higher degree, or no degree at all. Thank you.
Susan Plimpton.
I'll try to go quickly. I know we're running a little over. First of all, I'd just like to thank you, Chair Cohen, President Kaler, and members of the Board of Regents. Thank you for your time, and thank you for considering this critically important budget. I'm Susan Plimpton, and I'm the chair of the Neurosciences Development Advisory Committee of the University of Minnesota Foundation. I'm here today to speak to you about alpha-synuclein. It took me a while to learn how to say that. I can't tell you much about alpha-synuclein, but I can tell you that it's a protein present in each of our brains. I can tell you that this protein has the potential to become toxic and form clumps. I can tell you this because my father-in-law, a prominent Twin Cities general surgeon, cannot. He can't tell you because toxic protein clumps formed in his brain, a condition you know better as Parkinson's disease. My father-in-law passed away from Parkinson's and severe dementia. Today, there are nearly 6 million Americans suffering from Parkinson's or Alzheimer's disease, and as you know, this number is projected to grow significantly. I can't tell you how to prevent alpha-synuclein from turning toxic, and I can't tell you how to help those stricken by these devastating and fatal brain diseases. But Dr. Michael Lee here at the University of Minnesota might be able to. Dr. Lee's research focuses on going beyond the symptoms and getting to the underlying processes of these devastating diseases. Dr. Lee has had promising success and feels that his work here at the university points to new therapeutic targets. His research is at an early stage, but he is hopeful. Our job at the foundation is to help ensure that Dr. Lee has the necessary resources to turn his hope and our shared hope into reality. The investment made by the state and the university to advance the types of discoveries and treatments we see in Dr. Lee's lab makes me more hopeful than ever. Thank you very much. And I might add that the current issue of Neuroscience News cover story is on Dr. Michael Lee, so if you want more information, it's right there. Thank you again for your time.
Chris Gedowitz.
Thank you, Board, for hearing me today. My name is Chris Gedowitz. I'm a student here at the University of Minnesota. I am also a member of Students for a Democratic Society, and I'm here today to reclaim my tuition, and I'm also here to demand accountability for the debt that I'm graduating with. And in doing so, I'd like to dispel a myth, which is that tuition is not the administration's money, but it in fact is the students' money that they pay to get an education. So I'm going to speak today about a referendum that was overwhelmingly passed by students this spring. We saw an overwhelming turnout with the elections here on campus with undergraduates, much more so than in recent memory in the time that I've been here. And a lot of that was due in part, I believe, to a referendum, which received overwhelming support from the students who voted, much more so than even the elected representatives of the student body. So the points of that referendum are as follows. First, we asked that a 10% pay cut be given to the 161 administrators here making over $200,000 a year, and that money then is reinvested into students' education, i.e. my education, which I am paying for. This is also in part due to the fact that I believe as a student that my money should serve my education first, and that also that competitive salaries are not reserved to simply retain and attract administrators, as President Kaler has suggested, but in fact that my tuition money should be available to retain and attract the educators that serve me on a daily basis. The second point is that a full budget disclosure is available to students in April before it is brought before the Regents, before it is brought before the legislators, so that students have a time where they can reflect on how their tuition money is being spent and then have a voice in that process. And that brings me to the third point. The third point is the student vote, the student's ability to vote up or down any proposed tuition and fee increases. This in part we believe and I believe as a student, will hold you accountable for the money that I am paying for my education. And if you can't justify the way you're spending my money, I don't believe that's the way the money should be spent. So this fundamental democratic power that will serve students will bring a more transparent budget process and show that the university is in fact serving both students and the state of Minnesota. Students, as we have heard many times here, often take on a massive debt load. Minnesota is the third highest in graduate debt load, and I believe that all of these students have the right to hold accountable the administration that is spending that money and demand accountability to the public sector which you are serving. And I'm going to finish because that gentleman got plenty of time up there before, so I'll leave you with these remarks here. If you're here as a public servant, that's great, and I appreciate that, but you are not here in the private sector to get competitive wages with that sector. You're here as public servants to serve me as a student. And while President Kaler has insisted that our referendum is not a legal issue, and he is absolutely correct, I believe this is an ethical issue in education, and I believe that students should be served by the university, and their tuition money should serve their education and not the administration. I will continue this campaign. I will continue to come speak with you. We'll speak with President Kaler in the future, and I look forward to bringing this again to the students and the legislator. Thank you.
Caitlin Boley.
My name is Caitlin Boley, and I'm a member of AFSCME 3800 and have worked at the U for 2 years as a clerical worker. During those 2 years and before, we have tried to approach you, the Board of Regents, university presidents, and other top staff in central administration with our concerns about staffing at the U. At every turn, we have been dismissed, disregarded, and ignored. Recent national media coverage of management staffing at the University of Minnesota raised many of the same points we have raised for years, and legislative leaders asked many of the same questions we have asked you. The university is going in the wrong direction, and it's time for you to make a change. According to lists provided to AFSCME by the University of Minnesota Office of Institutional Research, between October 2008 and April 2013, the size of university staff as a whole decreased by 1.26%. Clerical jobs, held by my union's members, have decreased by almost 8 times that amount, 9.76%, 184 jobs. Civil service as a whole has decreased by 7.2%. That's 733 jobs gone. While the overall number of faculty has not decreased since 2008, neither has it significantly increased. During that time period, the faculty employee group increased in size by a mere 0.74%, 31 jobs. While the university added assistant, associate, and adjunct professors, we lost 44 full professors. What about the top leadership at the U? Have the directors and managers of the academic administrative group who run the U, have their ranks decreased? Have they made the same sacrifices they demanded of other university employees? As a group, they have not. In fact, despite the recent financial challenges faced by the U, the management group has swollen in size by 5.43%, adding 121 new jobs. I'm sure these are good people who care about their families and their jobs just as we do. This is not about them. It is about how best to invest precious university resources. The legislature has set a goal of $15 million in administrative reductions. The U already squandered an easy opportunity to achieve that goal. If, instead of expanding its management group by 5.43% since fall 2008, the university had, through attrition, without layoffs, reduced the size of that group by the university average of 1.26%, then 129 management jobs would have been eliminated. Currently, the average wage for academic administrative position is $85,000 a year. Factoring a fringe benefit cost of around 30% would put the net value of those 129 jobs at $14.26 million. We need to stop spending this money on managers and start spending it on the workers who provide services directly to students, faculty, administrators, and patients, workers like us. We need to stop dilly-dallying. It is time to make the right decision. It is time for you to listen to us, to listen to the legislators at the State House, and to the people of Minnesota. It's time to stop chopping from the bottom and start chopping from the top. Thank you.
Megan Mason.
Chair Cohen, members of the board, thank you for your time this afternoon. I'm speaking today on behalf of the Graduate and Professional Student Assembly, otherwise known as GAPSA. As a student representative to the Board of Regents, it's been my pleasure to sit on the Finance Committee, where I recognize the thoughtfulness and great discussion that has gone into the proposed budget. To begin with, the tuition freeze for undergraduate in-state students is appreciated by the student body as a whole. Although the graduate and professional students would ideally like to see the same freeze, much of our student population completed their undergraduate degrees at the university as well. So the tuition freeze will certainly mitigate their overall student loan debt, which is certainly non-trivial. We also trust that graduate and professional students will benefit from the MnDrive initiative through the introduction of new research projects and the expansion of pre-existing interdisciplinary partnerships. While we can make great strides in the near future, MnDrive's vision is global and long-lasting. We would encourage that many of the financial resources given to this initiative get allocated to traineeships and assistantships for the graduate and professional students who will make up the next generation of innovators and leaders in these arenas. Just as MnDrive focuses on interdisciplinary solutions to local and global challenges, GAPSA will be partnering with the Center for Integrative Leadership to facilitate interdisciplinary collaboration among its constituent student body as outlined in our Student Services Fees request. Trainings on civic engagement techniques, how to leverage windows of opportunity, and building strategic relationships, just to name a few, will be made available to graduate and professional students to prepare them to be leaders of the dynamic workforce they will enter upon graduation. GAPSA has also set aside fee money to support the application of skills used in the creation of MOOCs and related online learning tools for graduate and professional students. We have chosen to address grand challenges to allow interdisciplinary approaches to problem solving. We feel these approaches allow us to help support the land-grant mission of the 21st century. Although outside of the university budget, graduate and professional students are troubled by the proposed increase in federal education loan rates from 3.4 to 6.8% on July 1st. The doubling of the interest rate is a large hit to the student recent graduate pocketbook. We are concerned that Congressman Klein's proposed bill would similarly increase loan payments and leave future students vulnerable to rate increases. We support the Reed-Harkin Affordability Act that will keep interest rates at 3.4% for the next 2 years until a more sustainable solution can be reached for student borrowing. Support from the university in its distribution of aid to students and in its political presence is necessary to overcome these incipient student fiscal challenges. Thank you.
And Karen Ash. Karen Ash.
Chair Cohen, President Kaler, members of the Board of Regents, I am Professor Ash and Director of the N. Bud Grossman Center for Memory Research and Care. And I'm here to express my appreciation for and describe some aspects of the significant impact that this budget will make toward advancing discoveries and treatments for brain conditions. I've been studying Alzheimer's disease for 20 years. I have a simple goal to develop a safe, affordable, and effective way to prevent this disease which robs a person of their memories, emotions, thoughts after leading a full life. We used to think that Alzheimer's began when the symptoms appear. We now know that the disease process begins up to 30 years before the diagnosis is made, before the disease manifests itself. Our research focuses on treating people before Alzheimer's symptoms appear. Our mouse models, which are the most widely used in the entire world by public research institutions and by private pharmaceutical companies, will enable us to lead the world in developing this type of treatment. Because we want to develop affordable treatments, we are not limited in our partnerships with pharmaceutical companies. Our population is aging. There are currently 5 million people with Alzheimer's. There will be 15 million unless we can prevent it by the year 2050. Alzheimer's now costs $109 billion a year, out-costing cancer and heart disease. Yet Alzheimer's, unlike cancer and heart disease, has no treatment. I dream that when the Board of Regents convenes 50 years from now, this epidemic that we fear, that's so threatening now, will never have happened. The investments made through MnDrive are a step towards making that dream a reality. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, and this public forum of the Board of Regents is adjourned.